online meeting of this edition of FestivalYA 2023. Thank you very much for being here with us in this lovely afternoon. And without further ado, I'm just gonna introduce our guest, our lovely guest, who is called Lauren Blackwood. And I'm sure that you already heard about her, you've already read her books, or at least you've seen some of their lovely covers in the virtual space. And perhaps one or maybe both of them have piqued your curiosity. So Lauren Blackwood, long story short, is a Jamaican American author who currently lives in Virginia, unless that changed since I last, no, not really. All right. And so far she published 2 books. The first one is called Within These Wicked Walls, and we also have it in Romanian, published by Trei Books. It's called Între acele ziduri blestemate. It's a translation by Oana Dușmănescu. And then there is also this one called Wild Blood, which by my knowledge hasn't been translated yet, but that makes sense because it just appeared. So yeah. Right, so that being said, these are just a couple of basic informations about Lauren Blackwood, as I said, our lovely guest this afternoon. And we will function by the rules that maybe some of you already know from previous experiences with FestivalYA, which means I'm just going to have a couple of warm-up questions with Lauren, and then you are cordially invited to ask your own, either by a show of hands. There is a small smiley in your Zoom app, which says reactions. And if you press on it, you're gonna see a sign saying raise hand. So you can use that one. Or if you don't feel like talking, you can also use the chat. So write your questions in the chat and then I can voice them and Lauren can reply. Right, so I talked a lot. Lauren, so I'm passing the ball to you with just a couple of warm-up questions. And my first would be if you actually studied to become a writer or it just appeared.
Oh, that's a great question. I did not study for it. I mean, well, by study, I didn't go to school for it, but I did, I have been writing a long time, like since I was in grade school. So from when I was really little, I was always writing. So I sort of count that as practice, you know? So I've had a lot of practice because of years of writing. And then when I was a little older, I got a mentor. So I entered a program where a published author would mentor me in sort of working on my book. So in that way, I sort of learned that way, but I did not go to school for it. I went to school for music, actually, so totally unrelated. But it's always been a hobby of mine.
I actually was quite curious about that one because I read in one of your bios that you're a musician, so that piqued my curiosity. Care to share more about that? Like, are you singing with a voice or are you playing an instrument?
Yes, I actually play the violin. So I've been playing that since I was like 9 years old, I think, 8 or 9. It's, yeah, my whole life, basically, just like writing, my whole life. And actually, so I went to school for music, and then I started playing professionally. So I was making money with music. And then because of the pandemic, you know, everything sort of shut down. So I didn't have any jobs I could get, no gigs. So I started writing professionally. So they sort of switched. So writing was my hobby and music was my career. And then the pandemic hit, and then music became my hobby and writing became my career.
It's actually coming quite handy to have these two options and to be able to
Yes.
juggle between the two of them. Yeah, that's actually lovely. Yeah, so who knows? Maybe in the future there's going to be some sort of collab. By the way, because you're also a musician, I'm really curious. Do you write while listening to music, or do you have a certain type of music that you like to listen to while you write?
Yes, I do. I have to have music when I write because it really sets the mood. So it's not a certain kind of music, but it's whatever vibes with what I'm writing. So if I'm writing like a romantic scene, I have to have like a love song on, but it's a very specific love song for this particular couple. So, you know, whatever their vibe is, I guess I should say, like whatever kind of romance they're having right now is the song I would have on. So yeah, but I do have a lot of classical music too. I have to have classical music just for the setting and everything. And then I have a lot of love songs, and I have yeah, a lot of love songs. Even if I'm writing like a battle scene, I'll have like a love song and I'm like, this is for the characters, like not for the scene I'm writing.
Right, that actually makes sense. I'm very amused now because I've read a couple of your interviews, and more often than not, you've mentioned this vibing thing and these vibes that, you know, your characters and the relationships between them give. And now I'm somehow it's a music, but somehow it's like super nice to see that you're mentioning vibes and the idea of, you know, this setting you up in a certain mood, this thing that you seem to care a lot about your characters, just like you were saying, that it's not maybe as important what kind of scene you are writing, but your characters seem to be somehow the center of your attention. So this is really sweet.
Yes, the characters basically write the book after I get to know them. The first draft I use to get to know the characters, and then after that, I kind of like let them run free, and so they choose what they're doing. I mean, I sort of outline it for the main events that I know are going to happen, but how they get there, the characters sort of decide what's going on. So that's why I base all my music on them, because they're really the ones guiding the path.
So you're one of those authors who let themselves be sort of controlled by the characters and not the other way around.
Yes. I mean, I've had to learn to plan a little bit more because my editor wants to know what's going to happen before I write it. So I've had to learn how to plan. But yeah, mostly once I get into writing, it's like the characters sort of guide me.
And it's actually quite sweet. Right, so I just promised you a couple of warm-up questions so that you guys who are here with Lauren and myself gather a bit of courage perhaps to ask your own. So I will now repeat the procedure. If you care to tell something to Lauren or to ask her a couple of questions, either do a show of hands using the reactions, or just, you know, like showing your hands because I can see you on your cameras, or write your questions in the chat and I can grab them from there and voice them. So whoever feels like asking something, saying something, whatever, please let me know. Don't let the suspense kill me.
I know. I love answering questions. It's my favorite.
Oh, look at her. She's so excited. Anyone feeling brave? Roxy, I see you, please.
I would like to start and, you know, break the ice by asking you a question related to music, since you've been talking about it just now. I wondered if you make like playlists for your books or for your characters, because I've seen that it's now a trend on Spotify mostly to have like a playlist for your book. And I think that would be very interesting and atmospheric.
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. First of all, your earrings are gorgeous. I love them.
Thank you. Thank you.
And yes, I do make playlists. Some of the songs are kind of embarrassing, so I don't know if I would share my playlists, but I do make them because they are very like I write based on like relationships and emotion. So I'm like the music has to feel right, the mood has to be right for me to write it. So I mostly get songs that like put me in the headspace and the mood to write the scene I'm writing. So like I said, yeah, I mostly love songs because I like to write a lot of romance and it's like about the characters. But I like to put a lot of classical music into just because that's what I was trained on, classical. And it makes me sort of feel a little more comforted. And then really it depends on the book I'm writing. So like I feel like my romance part would have like a lot of like sort of emotional angsty songs. And then I feel like Within These Wicked Walls had a lot of like atmospheric songs that would like make you think of like Jane Eyre and stuff. So like I try to connect it to the book. But yes, long story short, I do have playlists, but some of the songs are too embarrassing to share. So like I sort of just keep it on private.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Now I'm really curious what embarrassing means. What do
Oh my
you
goodness.
mean?
I don't know, just
Can you
like,
give
you
us like
know,
one example, one tiny example, like what's
I
embarrassing
just have
music?
like I just feel like a nerd sometimes, you know, with the song choices I put. So I'm like, you know, not everybody's gonna think this is as cool, and that's okay. But like maybe like I'll just keep it to myself, you know.
Right, because I don't know, I was thinking that maybe you have this very like shady rap hip hop music interest or reggaeton something or something, but then
No,
no, I suppose you're rather on the other corner.
well, songs I can dance to like don't help me write, like because I want to dance to them. So I can't put anything with like any like heavy beats or anything. So that's why it's mostly like love songs, very lyrical music, because otherwise I'm gonna want to stop and dance or something, which I'm not very good at either. So like, let's not even get into that. But yeah, so I try to keep it like very lyrical and very like soothing and very emotional.
All right, it makes no sense like this, especially that bit about dancing, right? Guys, feel free to keep raising your hands or to write in the chat room if you have questions for Lauren. Mariuka, please.
Hi. Okay. You mentioned at the beginning that the start of your publishing career started with mentorship. Was it through pitch wars or something else?
Oh, okay. It was through something else, which is not around anymore. And also sad, Pitch Wars isn't around either. It's hard to keep those mentor programs like going, you know, because it's like all volunteer stuff. But it was for marginalized authors. It was like, I think it was called Writing in the Margins. So that was like before Pitch Wars was like a huge thing. Um, but yeah, so I got set up with a published author, and like they selected me out of the pool because they sort of like felt connected to my book at the time. It wasn't one of the books that are published right now, but I feel like it wasn't. It also wasn't ready to like be published, so I feel like I learned a lot from that book, and it's still sitting on my shelf right now. Like I'm waiting to revise it when I feel ready to revise it. but I feel like I learned a whole lot from that program, and I applied it to these books within these Wicked Walls and Wild Blood. And I learned a lot. So if you can do a mentorship, it doesn't have to be like from a big program or anything. You can like explore your local critique groups or writers centers, and you can usually find something like that. And I highly recommend, yeah. It's really nice to be able to bounce stuff off other writers, and like writers who have like been there, you know. It's great to talk to writers on your level too, but writers who have been there before, it's really great to like soak in that sort of knowledge.
And what advice would you have for everyone here that might want to start a career and search for a mentor, like to grasp their attention?
That's a good question. There's just so many mentor programs that are like not around anymore, so it's hard to recommend one in particular. But like I said, explore, like if you have a local writing center, you should explore that. And then also like don't be afraid like to be like, if you're online and you are like looking up programs and stuff, don't be afraid to like DM people and like ask questions, you know. Like a lot of people don't have the time, but a lot of people will, and they may be able to point you in the right direction. And then also critique groups. Always recommend having a critique partner or a critique group. Sometimes just a partner is better, because you can find someone you really like connect well with and who understands your writing and what you need out of like a partnership. So yeah, I do recommend looking for critique partners or critique groups as well. And there are like sort of like matchmaking critique partners programs. I know my Wendy Hurd, who like we have the same agent, so I call her my sister. She actually does like critique partner matchmaking on her website, I think. And then there's also like, I mean, Twitter is not really used as much anymore, but I'm pretty sure there's a hashtag on Twitter that's like CP match. And so you can like look for critique partners that way.
Yeah, there definitely was, but I haven't seen them like in some time.
Yeah, Twitter's been being, yeah. So, so yeah, it's unfortunately a lot of the resources were on Twitter, so it's harder to like find them now that Twitter is sort of, you know. But yeah, I do recommend going online and like just searching for like writing centers, mentor programs. Not all of them are created equal. So yeah, you definitely want to, you know, mentor. You want to look for someone who has like published books, but like books that you want to aspire to. Like make sure it's like in the genre that you want to write, and make sure you like respect their work and what, you know, they're putting out there. But yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for your questions, Mariuka. Yes, Lauren, picking up one of the threads that Mariuka kindly left me, I really have noticed in most of the books that I've been translating in the latest years, that I've been translating a lot of YA, that there is a lot of authors, especially female, but I don't want to be like, I don't want to go into any sort of generalizations, but just it's maybe an observation. So a lot of authors are always mentioning these groups you've been mentioning, like these small groups of authors who've been apparently sharing ideas or support or kindness or encouragement among them. And lots of them are also published authors, and some of them are not, or at least they are not authors that I would recognize. And I really wanted to ask you about this. Like, is it a trend? Like, is it something that most authors do? Is it a YA thing? Is it a fantasy thing? How do you perceive it?
I think it's I don't know if I would call it a trend. I think it's more of a necessity because you're in this um world, and you don't want to be like in a bubble, and getting feedback from other writers um is pretty essential, I think, for getting ready for a publication. So if you're just writing for yourself and you don't care what the market is doing or anything like that, and you just want to write for yourself, that's a whole different thing. If you're writing towards being published traditionally, definitely having a group or one or two people who you really trust, who understand what you're looking for in a critique, who like sort of get your writing, is a pretty great idea. And also, it's hard to find those. So sometimes you have to like test the waters and like exchange a page or two or something, and see if you guys mesh well, if you make a good partnership. But yeah, I think it's pretty essential to like understand what's going on like in the writing world, and have those other writers who are like on the same level as you, and like giving feedback to help make you better. So there's some like you can write, and sometimes there's things you'll miss because you're so into your own story. Like there's things that you'll miss that maybe, oh, I understand the whole backstory of this character, but I didn't actually explain it on the page. And like I didn't notice maybe because like it's in my head, I know what's going on. But as soon as you get a critique partner to read it, they're like, oh, hey, I don't know what's going on. And you're like, oh, wait, it's still in my head. I didn't actually put it on the page. So let me explain that. So yeah, I think it's really useful. And I love my critique partners. Like I found some really good like writers I love, and like, yeah, it has been amazing.
Yeah, I sort of get it because in my imagination it would be something like, this secret society gathering every Thursday or something like that, and I in this sort
Oh
of
no,
candlelit thingy and sharing some
no,
secrets.
none of that going on. None of that.
So no seances, nothing like that. Okay, good
No,
to know.
no rituals, nothing like that. Just exchanging work, and like definitely you want to find people you trust to do that. But yeah, sometimes we just have lunch and stuff, but most of the time we're critiquing each other's work and going back and forth and like growing from it, which is great.
Yeah, I can also see like the value in this kind of thing, and it's like it's basically because I've been also beta reading a lot of books recently, and I know how important it is to have this kind of diverse beta readers and this kind of diverse people who would tell you about this and that from different perspectives that you never thought about. Yeah. Right, guys, once again, I'm here just to entertain you. So you are those who should be asking questions or telling Lauren stuff. She's our star for this afternoon. So please, by all means, if you have anything to tell her, this is the right moment to do so. If you've read,
there are no bad questions, guys. There are
Yeah.
no bad questions.
Absolutely not. If you've read any of her books, or if you haven't read them yet, but the covers that I just showed you intrigued you and you would like to ask about them, maybe, I don't know.
You don't even have to ask about the covers. I will just tell you about the covers because I love them. They're
Amazing.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
My designer, Carrie Resnick, designs them. The artists are amazing, and I got my copies behind me here, and I'm like super grateful to have such a great cover designer. And I'm excited for book 3. Like I can't wait to see what that cover looks like.
Hey, you mentioned book 3, but in all the interviews that I've read, you said you're not allowed to talk about it.
Oh, I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't. Now
Ah,
it's
all right.
announced, so now I
All
am.
right.
So book 3 is gonna be it's vampires, so which is yes, vampires in the American Civil War. So yeah, it's gonna be
I'm
very
in love.
dramatic. I'm very
No,
excited.
it's
Yeah.
auto buy for me. You just said vampires and civil war, so it's basically for me. It's like I bought it. It's sold. You have the first buyer.
And it's dual point of view, so it's like the dude and the girl, and I'm like, yes, like my first time writing dual point of view, and I'm very excited.
Whoa. Okay, I'm gonna need 1 minute break just to digest this, guys. So I'm gonna be right back with you. And it's amazing because we just had one question in the chat, and I'm going to read it, and Lauren can answer it, and I can go and hyperventilate somewhere. Right. So we have this question from Joanna. I am so curious about Wild Blood. I would like to know how you got the idea of the book. Lauren, this is for you.
Oh, great. That's a great question because I love this book. So it started off me wanting to write based on my heritage. So I'm Jamaican American. So I really wanted to write a book that was based in the folklore of Jamaica. So I started there. And because I write with historical fantasy, I really wanted to ground it in actual history that happened as well. So in Jamaica, I don't know if it happened other places as well, but specifically in Jamaica, after slavery was abolished, people found like reasons to keep people working for free. So yeah, it was like not legal, but they found reasons, and by that I mean like not good reasons, like not valid reasons, but somehow they were able to keep Black people and people of color like working for free, no money. Like, and in Wild Blood, they sort of made it valid by like paying them a little bit, but you know, not very much. So they couldn't call it slavery because technically they were paying them. So I was like, oh, this is like such a crazy time in history, and I'm like, I really want to depict this, but like in a magical way. So I was thinking, how can I relate this book back to Within These Wicked Walls? My brand, I was sort of thinking, is like romance, monsters, and like lots of blood. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. So I came up with the idea to do monsters in the jungle instead of a haunted castle. And the Wild Bloods magic, that sort of came separate because that's not involved with the folklore at all. But the monsters in the jungle are all from Jamaican folklore, except for the insects. I sort of like made those up, but the rest of them are from folklore. And I was like, yes, we have to put this in here. And sort of the like the thing that makes novels like Gothic is sort of the setting is a character in itself. So I definitely wanted to make the jungle like a character, part of the, you know, not just part of the scenery, like definitely like a character in itself. So all that craziness to say, it started with me wanting to write about my heritage, and then it branched off from there.
The characters took over.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, the characters did take over. So I was gonna say like it, the plot is not thin, but there's plot, but like for me, if plot is not as important, plot's important to my editor, my agent. So I do that for them. But for me, it's like the character journey that's the most important. And I feel like we really go on a journey with Victoria through the whole book. So yeah, that was the focus for me, and I'm super excited about it.
we actually have a follow-up question about this also from Joanna. And she's asking if there are important topics, taboo topics, or sensitive topics in your book. Still about wild blood.
Yes, wild blood. Yes, there are darker themes, a little sensitive. Her past deals a lot with abuse and sexual assault. So there are mentions of that and sort of dealing with that sort of trauma. And then there's the trauma of sort of being kidnapped from when you're 6 years old and growing up in like a horrible situation. So most of the people around her aren't great. So yeah, there is a lot of like dealing with trauma, but I try to put some lightheartedness in there. That's what Thorne's there for. He brings all the happiness and the songs and yeah, and the romance. So there are some like tough subject matter in there. So if you're not prepared for that sort of thing, I would recommend, maybe read Within These Wicked Walls instead, which also deals with trauma, but not that kind, because she's dealing with sort of a horrible relationship with her dad, her father figure, in Within These Wicked Walls. So yeah, it depends on what you are comfortable with reading, but two different traumas for two different books.
Speaking of which, we just got a question in the chat about Within These Wicked Walls. And it's saying, speaking of inspiration behind books, I would like to know about Within These Wicked Walls. Mostly because I feel like the subject is unique and I haven't seen many young adult books exploring exorcism and the church.
Yes, that's true. I feel like exorcism is like explored a lot in adult books, not so much in YA. But yeah, I was super excited about this book because I wanted it to be Jane Eyre with all the romantic tropes and everything. But then I found this article, this scholarly article about the evil eye in Ethiopia. And so I just couldn't resist. I'm like, this has to happen. And I was gonna put it in England, but then I was thinking, no, this has to happen in Ethiopia for it to be, truly, what it is, because they do have their own Orthodox Christian church in Ethiopia. So I'm like, no, this can't be like in England with like the Catholic Church or something. This has to be in Ethiopia with their proper Orthodox church, with the evil eye, doing amulets. Not the way took a little bit of creative license with the amulets. So they make them a little differently. But I was like, yeah, I have to do this in Ethiopia. So I was super excited when I got that idea, and I couldn't wait to write it because I get to do like the Jane Eyre, Jane Austen romance vibes where it's like, will they, won't they? Oh my gosh. And then I got to do like a scary haunted house, which is crazy for me because I'm a scaredy cat. So I don't know how that happened.
Right. This actually sounds so nice because I've been, as I said, I'm like halfway through the book, so I cannot really pronounce myself because I like to talk about books once I finish them and digested them a bit. So no, while I'm reading because I'm getting too emotional about them, I think. But I've been reading a couple of reviews on Goodreads, and it's like it seems to be like a bit of two camps. Like there are the people who can see somehow the Jane Eyre references, and then there are the people who cannot see them but really appreciated the world building that you managed to develop over there, and all these references about the evil eye and about the spirits that you brought onto the scene, and about how the character is growing during the book. So basically there were like no bad reviews. I mean, there were just people like who couldn't really see the connection.
Yeah. Some people can't just, well, I made it very, very different from Jane Eyre on purpose. So like you can see the parallels, but I didn't want it to be a complete, like, follow every beat of Jane Eyre retelling, because it's a completely different setting and it's a completely different circumstance. There's a haunted castle, instead of her being like a governess. So yeah, I definitely wanted a completely, like, pay homage to Jane Eyre. Like you can see it, but not every beat is going to be the same. And I prefer it that way because,
it makes sense.
Then you don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, because with Jane Eyre, obviously, if it'd been like a retelling or something, that it would be obvious what's going to happen. It's true. And I was just thinking that retellings seem to be quite at the center, especially once again, of the YA genre for quite a while now. And we don't seem to, get sick of them. We just love them. We keep buying them. We keep reading them. I just find it amazing because I loved fairy tales and classic legends and classic books while I was a kid. And now to see all these kinds of reinterpretations and retellings and changings of points of view, it's really amazing. I mean, I don't know about you, Lauren, but I find this very, very exciting, to keep having people coming up with ideas that would bring new perspectives onto very, very old stories.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I love retellings. I don't think I'll get sick of retellings until like I've retold everything. So yeah, I think retellings are awesome and I think they should continue. I don't think it should be a trend. I think they should just continue forever.
I truly hope so. We have a person in the chat. Bella, would you like to ask your question or write it in the chat?
I ask, hi, I'm so excited. Even at the moment, it is very difficult for me to control my emotion. Within this week's walls, it was the best book I have read so far, and the book grabbed my attention for the synopsis and the beautiful cover, an original, disturbing, and mysterious story. I fell in love with these books, and my question is, what inspired you to create the character Mangus?
Oh, thank you, Bella. Oh my gosh, that's so sweet. Magnus I wanted to do Rochester from Jane Eyre, but Rochester's pretty awful person, and like for me, I didn't see any sort of real appeal to the romantic aspect. Like I didn't understand how she could fall in love with him, except that she was like so deprived of like love her whole life that maybe that's why. And I'm like, no, I want to write someone that is flawed, but you can also fall in love with them. So I did Rochester, but I smoothed him out a little bit. So he's more like eccentric. He's kind of a weird kid instead of being like completely just awful. So because he was stuck in the castle for a while, for like 3 years, his social skills aren't great. So he is bad at talking to people. He's bad at knowing what topics you shouldn't talk about and what you can talk about. And he's just he's a lonely boy. And I thought, how would a guy who's like stuck not having really any friends or anyone he can look at or talk to or hang out with react to finally being able to hang out with somebody. And I was like, yes, Magnus. And I had to make him sort of like a little bit of a weird music kid because I grew up being a weird music kid. So yeah, he plays the harpsichord and yeah, he's I love him. He's cute. But yeah, so I took Rochester and I sort of like calmed him down a little to make him not so awful. And then I added a little bit of odd he's a little eccentric. So I thought that would be a nice balance against Andromeda, who's like very structured and very like, she knows what she wants to do, and Magnus is just like, just go with whatever. So yeah, I thought they had a great dynamic. Of course, and thank you for reading. I'm so happy.
Thank you, Bella, for your question. Thank you, Lauren, for this explanation. I just wanted to say that indeed you tend, at least in these first two books, to build very strong and somehow very reasonable, very level-headed female protagonists who can indeed also spark with emotion, but generally they tend to be like more calculated, and they tend to plan in advance. And somehow, at least some of your male characters seem to be like more passionate or more like prone to be carried away by emotions. So I find this very interesting, as opposed to the fact that, in a lot of books, we have very emotional female characters and very like rational male characters. I don't know if you intentionally did this. Like, is it on purpose or is it so?
Yes. I like to put emotions for my teens that like are not necessarily what society says they should be or what, but these emotions are like in teens, and we just don't get to see them in media because they're not like deemed like, appropriate for that gender or whatever. So like, yeah, I find that teen girls are very level-headed, and they are very reasonable in the way they go through things and make decisions. And so I wanted to show that in my girls. And guys, nothing wrong with crying at all and being emotional. And we don't really get to see that because guys are told, you don't cry, you don't get, show emotion, like just stay stoic. And yeah, I like my boys to be able to cry and get rescued by their girl, and that doesn't make them any less anything. There's yeah, so I thought I always like to bring a little bit of that into both ends. So yeah, my girls get to be a little more heroic, which they don't get to do all the time, and then my boys get to cry a little more. Magnus cries a lot. Like, people have told me Magnus is a crybaby, and I'm like, well, you would be crying too if you were cursed and in a haunted castle for 3 years. So,
It actually makes sense. Thank you. Thank you for this. I really wanted to check this with you because I had the same impression. Alexia, I can see your hand up.
Hi. I'm a little bit nervous. I hope you hear me.
I can hear you. Don't worry.
Okay, so if you could have the opportunity to live in one of your books, which one would you choose?
Oh, that's a crazy question. First of all, I want to address these beautiful paintings in the background. Those are gorgeous. I love them. And
Thank
then,
you.
okay. Did you paint those, by the way?
Yes, and I have
Stop
more,
it.
an entire wall.
Stop. Oh, they're gorgeous. Oh my gosh. Okay. I am going to answer your question, but I had to address that because those are just beautiful. Okay, so which one would I live in? Oh gosh, which one would I survive in? That's a great question. Me being me with no like resources, no extra resources or anything, I think I might do better in Wild Blood just because I could stay on the jungle road and be fine. Like I would just like make the decision not to go into the jungle. I'd be like, let's stay on the road. Because within these wicked walls, I don't think I'd survive in the desert. It's too hot. And the town she lives in is pretty rough as well. So unless you live in the church like she did, like the town is a little rough. But then also it's a haunted castle. So I'm like, and it's cold in the castle. I don't do good with cold either. So I think we're going to go with Wild Blood just because I think I could like figure out ways to survive better there than within these wicked walls.
Thank you.
No problem. Oh my gosh, those paintings! I want one so bad.
I'll send you one. If you give me your address, I'll
it.
make you one.
Will you really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you're the sweetest. Oh my gosh. My address, I think, to send things is on my website, but I will have to double check that. You're so cool. Oh my gosh, I love you.
I love you too.
Wow, that's amazing already. Good. So it seems to be reading with emotions and presence and promises, and I really love that. I really love that this conversation has turned into this. Thank you guys for being so awesome. But I'm just gonna interrupt you shortly because we have a question from Roxy in the chat as well. And she's asking you, Lauren, if you plan to write more retellings in the future.
Oh, great question. I do. Well, I have plans, but I have to run them by my editor, so I have to see if she is down with that. So if she likes the idea, then definitely yes, there will be more retellings in my future. Because I have plans like in my brain, like, simmering, but I gotta wait for approval.
Just out of curiosity, can you name a couple of stories that you liked as a child? It doesn't have to be like the classic stories that most of us know, but maybe also like some legends, because I know that, like Wild Blood is also inspired by the stories that your grandparents used to tell you and about what you've been hearing when you were a kid. So I can see you looking already.
I was trying to find some of my favorite books on the shelf. So like I'm really into like classic myth. So I have like a book about it. And all my classics are on this row here. So yeah, I'm really into myths and legends, and I Google those all the time. I'm like, when I'm bored, I will just go down a rabbit hole of looking up myths and everything. So definitely one of my favorite fairy tales is Beauty and the Beast. And so yeah, it was my favorite Disney movie too because of that. And then like, I guess it's sort of almost the same story. The story of Psyche and Cupid in ancient Greek myth, which is similar story. I really like that because it's super romantic. I was trying to find like my favorite book from when I was younger, and it's right on the shelf. So this is not based on myth or anything, but it's Hawk Song by Amelia Atwater Rhodes, and it is like marriage of convenience and enemies to lovers, and it's like, I love this book. I love this book. So like it is true enemies to lovers. Like they are literally at war with each other, and to make peace, they have to get engaged. And I'm just like, like my favorite kind of trope ever. So love it. All right, set that back up.
Thank you for sharing that. I actually have never heard of Hawk Song before, but I think I've seen it mentioned in another interview that you did, and I actually put it on my to-read list because I'm quite curious about it. Was it popular? Because I don't know, I never heard of it.
The author was actually popular because she published her first book at 13 years old. I think 13, and then I think she wrote this book when she was 19. So yeah, she was popular in like the early 2000s, I think, because of that. So yeah, this is a pretty old book, but I love it. I still love it.
All right, I'm gonna check it out for sure. Thank you so much, Lauren. Guys, just first warning for you. According to my watch, we have 10 minutes left.
Oh man.
And I know, but what can I say? Use another trope and say that time flies when you're having fun, and we seem to be having a lot of fun with a lot of emotion floating around. So I just want to use this to encourage everyone to talk or to write and to ask stuff or to say stuff or whatever comes into your mind, because that's the best chance that you have. So who knows? Maybe you'd like to also send Lauren something. Kittens, chocolate. I don't know what she likes. Flowers.
Kittens?
Kittens? Yeah, I don't know. No kittens for you? No, you don't like cats?
No animals through the mail, you guys. No animals.
Via email? No. So no postage of animals. Okay, noted. Thank you. All right. Okay. People. Anything else? Anything else that crosses your mind? Come on, because I have a lot of questions, but I don't want to be putting everything out of my mouth. Okay, I can see something in the chat.
Too.
Thank you. All right, I can see a question from Ilinka in the chat. Do you feel like you used your fears in order to create the world for your books?
Oh my gosh, yes. So anytime there's spiders, I'm like, that was me not liking spiders and putting it in. And yeah, I definitely, I feel like when you're writing scary books, you have to really tap into fear in order to write it. And so I definitely thought about, oh, what would make me super uncomfortable and like be scared? And that's what I have to put in. Otherwise, you can go off of what other people find scary, but it might not land as well emotionally because it's like, oh, well, I don't find that scary, but other people might. So I prefer to put in what I actually find scary so that like emotionally I can depict it, correctly emotionally. Yeah, so anytime there's spiders, it's like, yeah, that was me not liking spiders for sure. And then I think both books have stuff involving drowning. I don't like that either. So I'm like, oh, that's scary. Yeah. So yeah, there's a few things in there that I'm like, if I'm scared of it, like I can better write it for other people to be scared of it.
We have another question in the chat room. Let's see. Do you have favorite contemporary authors, maybe friends of yours, that are awesome as a person and wrote some awesome books that have a really good plot that you liked? Oh my God, a lot of conditions.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I can cover all those conditions because
amazing.
Yes, I do. So my friend Lissa Mia Smith wrote Ravel. It just came out in February. And it's sort of, if you guys know Moulin Rouge, it's a Moulin Rouge sort of inspired take where there's like magical jewels in, I think it's 1920s New York. So, and it's like a magical island with magical jewels and they can, there's like wishes and everything. It's super romantic. So I love it. That's Ravel by Lissa Mia Smith. And I also love Ayanna Gray, who wrote the Beasts of Prey trilogy, which the third book, Beasts of War, is coming out like January 2nd. So we have to wait a little while for the third book, which is, I'm like, I want to read that book. But yes, love her to death. And she wrote such an awesome trilogy that like, I can't wait to read the finale.
Thank you for these, Lauren. I knew Ayanna. To be honest, I haven't read her books yet. They're on my list. I think I have the first two already, or just the first one. I'm not sure. I have to check. But Yeah, I mean, I could see a couple of connections because she's setting her books in a sort of jungle or something as well, right?
Yes, we
More
both
or
have
less.
jungle books. We're like, yes, we should do events together because we both have jungle books.
Apparently, you should do a retelling of the Jungle Books.
Oh, I mean, that could be in the future. We'll see.
Imagine pitching that one. Yeah. Right. Okay, guys, final 5 minutes. Come on. 5 minutes of fame. It's more than or less than we've been promising the famous saying. Come on. Nobody else. I have a lot of curiosities, as I said, but I don't want to steal your thunder. Okay, look, I'll cut you a deal. So while you are thinking, yeah, of the last questions that you can ask, I'm just going to keep Lauren occupied with another one of mine. And then we'll see what we get. All right. So, because I asked you about your favorite books and I asked you about music, now I would like to ask you if you are into musicals and if you like any sort of musicals, and if, I don't know, you have a favorite one or you used to obsess about one, because usually when you like musicals, you know how you get very obsessed with one of them and you keep following it around and there's like a huge fandom around it, and I was really curious about that.
Yes, oh my gosh. I grew up with musicals from my parents. So like when I was little, I was watching the Funny Girl movie with Barbara Streisand. So like that's how much, and like the Showboat movie, like the old fashioned Showboat movie, like when I was little, I was watching all of those instead of cartoons. So I'm definitely, yeah, obsessed with musicals. Phantom of the Opera is my absolute favorite. I love it. I got to see it for my birthday one year. And I own the DVD of the 25th anniversary. So yeah, I love Phantom. And I read the original novel. I don't think I have it on my shelf, but I love both. So the original novel was great. So if you ever want to read Phantom of the Opera, great book. Great musical, my fave. But then, I mean, I do love like the ones like Sweeney Todd is great, but it's like not like I would sit there and listen to it all day, you know, like Phantom. And then like I've seen some more modern ones, like I saw Waitress one year. That was really good. So yeah, I love musicals. Love. And Hamilton. Gotta love Hamilton.
Just gonna ask you about that one because I don't know. I mean, with your background and everything, I thought that you'd say Hamilton immediately. Right. Because
Well,
come on, Civil War.
I love Hamilton, but I've never seen it live. I only saw it, like, you know, it was on Disney Plus, so for free.
I know.
I watched it on there. It was great.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, I actually still regretted that when I went to Canada, I missed it, but it's still gonna play, so it's good.
Oh yeah,
okay.
it'll be around for a while.
For a while. Well, not as Phantom. You've been lucky. You've seen it.
Yes.
Now it's been discontinued. We cannot watch it anymore.
Right. It's been around for a long time though. So
yeah, it's almost 70 years or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Crazy.
It's crazy. Good. So my tactic worked. We have another question in the chat. I'm just going to voice it now. It's a question from Roxy, and it says, have you ever thought of writing a sequel to Within These Wicked Walls? The story concluded well, but I would love to see more of Andromeda.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I wrote it as a single book, so I did make sure it ended well, like not on a cliffhanger, like everything's very tied up nicely, you know. So I feel like a sequel would have to be like more of a spin-off, because I feel like they're just so, their ending was so well done that I wouldn't know what to do with them next. Like I guess, you know, you could just do one of those slice of life things where they're just happy together, but that's not really conflict. So I would have to like actual conflict. So yeah, that's a great question. I have not thought of a sequel for Within These Wicked Walls. I sort of thought of a spin-off for Wild Blood, but I don't know if that's, you know, going to happen. Because my Civil War book is coming out next. So, yeah. So it's kind of on the back burner, but yeah, no sequel for Within These Wicked Walls. I thought it ended just too well to have one, you know? And let me not say spoilers. There's a few characters I would be like sad that they couldn't be in the sequel. So, you know, yeah.
Right. Thank you, Lauren. We're sorry, Roxy, about this. But for me, I'm just sure that if you read Wild Blood, and then I just don't want to say, because I cannot say how excited I am from this third book, I'm sure that you're going to love these characters as well and be all right with that. Guys, basically it's time. So these are like the last chance that you have to ask Lauren a question. So if there's something that has popped in your mind right now and you would like to share, it doesn't have to be a question. If you just want to share something with her now that you've been talking to her for an hour and maybe you feel that you know her better, this is the right moment to do so. Yes, Joanna, I think you can be the last one, if you please. Do you want to ask directly? Or maybe...
So I just wanted to ask, when did you start writing, and how did you get in this we can't say community, but how did you get in this job, let's say job?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So I started writing for fun when I was like 8 years old. And then it went up from there. And I got more serious as I got older. But I didn't try writing for publication till like college. So I spent that, and that's when I did like my mentorship. So I really got serious about it then. But getting into publishing, if traditional publishing, I don't know about any other kind like indie or anything, but you have to get an agent first. So you would write like a sort of, it's like a business cover letter, except you're telling them what the book is about mostly. And then there's like a little section about you, but mostly what the book is about. And you send it to agents. And if they ask for like pages or something, you would give them that as well. And then when you find an agent that meshes well and they offer, like, they get paid when you get paid, which is great. So like, if you're going for an agent, never go for one that you have to pay them ahead of time. That is a scam. So agents get paid when you get paid, which is great because then they work really hard to get you the best publisher home possible. And then I actually wanted Wednesday books. Like, I've been wanting Wednesday books since before I was published. I was like, they're going to be my publisher. And my editor, I was actually like, that's going to be my editor. So I ended up with them as my publisher, and I'm like, yes, I prayed for this. I manifested it. So I'm like, yeah. So yeah, to get into publishing, you know, professionally, you definitely want to start with, like I said, critique partners, so you can make your manuscript as clear and clean as possible before you send to agents. And then after you get an agent, they do their job. And definitely make sure you do your research on agents as well to make sure they're the right fit for you. And good luck.
Thank you so much for all these explanations, Lauren, and thank you for sharing a bit of your background and a bit of how you work and a bit of your routine and a bit of yourself, I think, because at least for myself, I've been asking you a lot of, let's say, not very intimate, but at least personal questions. So for me, it's very important that you chose to share this part of you with us. And Alexia, don't forget to check about that address if you want to start exchanging stuff.
Should I drop it in the chat?
Yeah,
just dropped
maybe
it in the
so,
chat,
maybe
that's
so.
fine.
And then we're gonna leave it for 1 minute so that people can copy and or write it down. And
Okay.
make sure that you also check Lauren's website, because you're gonna find exciting news there. And while Lauren is giving you her address, I will just profit of this occasion to show you again the book, the Romanian translation of the first book, her debut book, which is called in Romanian Întâlnire, blestemate. Yeah, it's quite thick, as you can see, so there's a lot of goodies in it. And it's available from Moderatoare. Yeah, so this is the first one. And then we have Wild Blood, which is the second one. It hasn't yet been translated into Romanian, so for now you can find it in English. And this one is a bit shorter, but also very, very filled with a lot of super interesting stuff for you guys. And because we seem to be in perfect syncing, there you go. You also have Lauren's address now in the chat. So make sure you copy it and you send her any sort of fan mail that you need to. But remember, she said so, no live pets. Okay, so that's very important. And definitely no spiders, right? So no any kind of spider representation whatsoever.
Oh yeah, nothing alive, please. No living creatures.
Good. All right, so for my part, Lauren, thank you very much for being such a kind speaker in this lovely afternoon. I really hope you have a very, very nice day as well. And I'm gonna be following and counting the days until your third book appears, because now I'm really, really excited about it. Really excited. Like,
Yes.
oh
It
my
comes
God.
out next summer. I don't have an exact date, but next summer, 2024. Yeah.
Okay, hyperventilating already, but I have time to get used to the idea.
But
so
that's
it's
not
good.
summer for you guys. That's not summer for you guys. So it's going to be in, right? Is that summer for you guys? Yeah, it is.
It is,
Sort
yeah.
of, yeah, June. Sorry, I was thinking of the wrong hemisphere.
No worries.
June through August. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's gonna
next
be summer for us. So perfect
Yeah.
summer read. Yeah, definitely. Good. Whoa, I don't know. Do I have to say something else? I don't know. Lauren, do you have any sort of final last words for this conversation, for your fans, for Romanian fans, whatever crosses your mind, so that we can end this in a nice way?
I just want to say thank you guys for coming to see me. It's been so much fun. I love your questions. The earring game is strong. The art game is strong. You guys are amazing. Like, just keep being amazing. I love you guys.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you, everyone. Keep watching
Thank
FestivalYA, because it's gonna be on for the whole week. And everybody have a lovely day.